Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 12 of the Advanced Higher Stats course. In this lesson, we'll be identifying and learning how to use appropriate random sampling methods. You will find this skill on page 24 of the Advanced Higher course spec. By the end of this lesson, you should understand the differences between random and non-random sampling and give examples of each. And you should also understand the difference between a sample and a census. There are two types of sampling, random and non-random. Random is by far better because when you do that, you can eliminate any biases, you can generalize any conclusions and to a degree, and you can also use your statistical analysis as well. Whereas for non-random, there is bias, you can't generalize any conclusions, and you can have skewed results as well, depending on how and why it's non-random. Let's go through all the random sampling that you need to know for advanced hire. The first one is simple random sampling, which is just the easiest one. A method of sampling where each individual in a population has an equal chance of being included in a sample. So if you have a class of 20, regardless of age, gender, or how they do in the class, that is randomly picked. You could say like with a random number generator. They're all assigned a number, and a random number generator picks a number, and that person is picked for the sample. Sampling is another type of random sampling where every nth number in a population is selected after starting randomly. What that means is that, again, if you have a class of 20 and you number them from 1 to 20, you randomly start at a number. Let's say you start at 3, and you will take that number and every fourth number along with that, and you'll put that in your sample. So you take 3, you take the third number, you take the 7th, the 11th, 15th, and 19th, and that would be your sample. Stratified sampling is another method of random sampling where the population is divided into distinct subgroups based on a certain characteristic, and then random samples are taken from each stratum or group. What this means is, for example, again with a class of 20, let's say there were 5 girls and 8 and 15 boys in that class, and you want a sample that represents the population. So you would want a 1 to 3 ratio. For every 1 girl, you have 3 boys. So what you can do, you could divide the population into girls and boys, and then for every 1 girl you randomly select 3 boys. So let's say you got you got them split into 5 girls and 15 boys. You randomly pick 3 girls, and then you would randomly pick 9 boys, and you would still have that 1 to 3 ratio like the true population does. Cluster sampling is the last random sampling method we'll be looking at. And this is where you divide a population into clusters, and then the entire cluster is randomly selected to form the sample. So before we were dividing it, and then we were randomly selecting from those clusters. But in this one, the clusters, everything in a cluster is selected and put in the sample. Now on to non-random sampling. An example of this is convenience sampling. So convenience sampling is when a sample is taken based on its convenience, how easy it is. So for example, if a researcher is conducting a study on smartphone usage habits among college students, he could get his sample by entering a university cafeteria just because it's convenient. A bunch of students will be there, and maybe he has to go there anyway to get food or to get work or for work, and that is convenience sampling because he's not randomly picking from the whole population. He's randomly picking from a group which have a common interest, which is being in the university cafeteria. And that could differ in results. Maybe in terms of smartphone usage, it would be much lower in a library, but it might be much higher in a university cafeteria because in a library you're studying, but in a university cafeteria you might just be chilling. Another example of non-random sampling is quota sampling. This is where, similar to stratified sampling, you divide the population into distinct subgroups based on a characteristic, but then you non-randomly pick individuals to best represent the population. So you aren't randomly picking like you in stratified. You purposely pick them, and this uh, also kind of counts as convenience sampling. But of course, the best thing you can do if you want to do statistical analysis on data is to have the data of the whole population, and that is called a census. This gives you the true mean and variance and makes statistical analysis much more accurate. These are the types of sampling you need to know: simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified, cluster, convenience, quota, and the census. That's the end of this very short lesson. Now you should understand the differences between random and non-random sampling and give examples of each. And you should understand the difference between a sample and a census.